Hello and welcome to season 3 of the Hurdy Gurdy Cafe podcast. I am very happy to be back, and this time not with Ryan but with Noel. Hello, Noel, how are you?
Hi, Sergio. I'm great.
Yes, and we have a very special guest as well, Mr. Robert Mandel. Welcome.
Welcome. Hello, everybody.
Yeah.
I am very, very happy to be here.
We have many things to talk about today. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
so my first question, because this is mandatory, like, how do you get into the hurdy-gurdy? What is your musical background? How did it all start? Because I think this is going to be super interesting, Robert.
Yeah,
Like,
especially in the 1970s.
right?
yes, a friend in Dresden, in Germany, Dresden. That was that time East Germany, and there was a kind of a exchange of children for the summer. So they invited me to stay there to study language for 2 months, and we invited their son, Thomas, to be in Budapest for 2 months. So that was an interesting story.
Okay.
And when I went to Dresden, it was in 1973, exactly. Really, I couldn't speak a word in German, but after 2 months, I was talking to the people in German because I was there and I had to. And on the way back, my father came to pick me up with the car. And on the way back from Dresden, we arrived in a little city called Markneukirchen. So those who are instrument makers or dealing with the musical instruments, they know that this is the one of the most interesting musical instrument museum in the world.
Wow.
And that was already in the 70s. And you know what happened? We went to the building, and the very first thing what I saw, that a nice blonde girl was playing something which was on the lap and gave out a sound when a baby is crying. And it was very interesting because the instrument itself, it looked very, very wonderful. And of course it was a hurdy-gurdy, but I didn't know about it because we didn't know that instrument in the early 70s. And I went to the girl and I asked her with my new German that what is this instrument? And she explained that this is a Drehleier, which is in German the hurdy-gurdy. And it's a very ancient instrument, and they have in the collection about 10 different things, but this is the only one which can be played. Of course, it was very strange because it was not perfect. I mean, we already know that it was not properly played, but I was definitely somehow mesmerized of this instrument. And when we came home, and the first night we went to in a small hotel, and I was dreaming about this instrument. You can imagine that I was dreaming about an instrument which I didn't know. And when we came, it's important to know that my grandfather was a sculptor. Is a quite well-known sculptor in Budapest, and I was starting to ask him to make an instrument like that. And because we didn't have any photographs, so we didn't have anything. I made a drawing myself how it looked like. And once upon a time, about maybe a month ago, I posted this photograph. It was a triangle form, which was the
Oh,
first
I
thing.
saw that one. Yeah, it was really interesting looking. It
And
was like a big triangle.
yes, and my new instrument, the Studium Basic, is also almost the same form, the same size, but of course, almost 50 years later. I mean, not almost, 50 years later. This is 50 years, a half century. So now we are talking about a half century story. And when I arrived back in Budapest and we started to make this instrument, somehow in some weeks I decided that I want to play on this instrument professionally. Because all my friends, I had a lot of musician friends. All my friends were pop musicians. They were playing electric guitar and the organ, and they were singing and they were playing the drum. I thought that this will be not easy, but I have to start to play something which is different. And of course, I was a very little boy. I was 16 years old or 17. I didn't have any special let me say scientific plans for being a hurdy-gurdy player. I thought that it would be good. And in some months, my grandfather, I have to tell you, he didn't like it too much, but at the end he made this instrument, and it worked. That was the fantastic thing. And I found,
wow,
absolutely not so good as the instruments today, but I could play, let me say, one octave.
Okay.
And it sounded good. And then I collected two of my friends who were studying
Wait,
music.
Robert, excuse me, was that just based on like what you had seen at the museum?
So
it
only
was
like
just based on your memory
describing and drawing and just like
We didn't have anything.
trying to
we didn't
remember
have
the
anything.
details of the instrument that you saw in that museum. It was like, oh, of course, because this is
That's
pre-internet. You didn't have any book with photos. No, nothing, no?
nothing.
Wow.
Nothing.
And no information on like the Hungarian tekero or any of that information at all yet.
No, that's another story. And
Okay.
it's very interesting to switch from my early story to switch to the Hungarian story of this instrument, because that's very interesting. There are a lot of hypotheses. Some of people want to know it differently, but now already we know how it happened, how the Hungarian hurdy-gurdy was born. And this is very interesting that, first of all, a fact that in the 70s, even the most well-known folk musicians like the group in the Musikas or Ferenc Sebő or Marta Sebestyén, or I could tell more, they didn't know about the hurdy-gurdy. Mm-hmm. And you know what happened? This is the typical story, what happens all the time in Hungary. That a Belgian guy who we know him, is not anymore alive. He's Claude Flagel. You remember
Claude
his
Flagel
name?
et Saviel.
Yeah. Claude Flagel was the only one who knew that in Hungary there is an old guy who is making hurdy-gurdies, tekerős, in a little village, in the behind everything, in a little village.
How did he know that? Is it just
Because a Belgian scientific researcher was coming to Hungary, and he was traveling weeks and weeks in Hungary, in between little villages, and asked people. But he only spoke French, so he took a person who could translate him, okay. And at the end they found an old man called Mihály Bársony. It was the name of him, in a little village called Tisza-Alpár. Tisza-Alpár is like a little village with maybe 300 people to live there. And he was dealing, I think he was a furniture maker or something like this. And he followed the 200 years old tradition how to make hurdy-gurdies. But he didn't have any connection with the capital or with cities. He just made his instrument there.
Wow.
For those guys who were playing on the villages. And now Claude Flagel came and asked the old man, how much would it be if I would buy your instrument? And if I'm talking about the euros value now, he told 50 euros.
Oh my God!
and of course, Claude, woke up and said to the old man, okay, I want 20.
Of course.
20 hurdy-gurdies. And that old guy almost died, What? 20? He makes a year too, maybe. But at the end, this old guy started to make hurdy-gurdies, and only for the Western market.
Wow.
So when the Hungarian folk musicians, they met first the Hungarian tekerő in Netherlands, in Amsterdam, on a festival. It was absolutely unbelievable that an old guy, it was an instrument collector. It was Henk de Wit. I don't know if you know the name. If you are in Netherlands, you
I am
have
in
to.
the Netherlands right now. Yes.
Yeah, you have to, to study after this name, Henk de Wit. I will write you if you want. I'm not sure that he's alive, but his collection must be there. He had, about 1,000 instruments in his flat. And I have seen it because when I was a child, I was a very lucky child because my parents took me to their travels. As I was also in Germany, and then we were in Netherlands in the 60s, in the late 60s, and so I know that this guy had 2 or 3 tekereus from this old guy from Tisa Alpár.
Wow.
So now it's an interesting story because when Claude Flagel told to the Hungarians that, my friend, you have to get on a train, and in 2 hours you will find the instrument what you didn't know about before. So that's crazy. And then those guys started to play and to study the Hurdy Gurdy, and this is the time in the early 70s when, for example, so nice people like Bela Szerényi or like those, they were even not alive. So that was it, just at a very old time, and I was already a young, like me, 20 years old guy who already played on the Hurdy Gurdy, but on my own Hurdy Gurdy, which is which is nothing to do with the Hungarian Hurdy Gurdy.
Do you still have it, Robert? Do you still conserve the first Gurdy that your grandfather made?
Yeah, that's here in behind me, but it's very well packed. So for the next time, I will
Post pictures.
I will send you all thing because it's
Yeah, it'd be great
no
to see
it's
another
it's
picture.
a historical thing, and I played on a lot of concerts, but with people we were playing Flemish music, Flemish folk music with the rommelpot. You know what a rommelpot is?
Yes.
That's a rommelpot, and another guy played on a stick with a chain and a rommelpot, chain, and Hurdy Gurdy. And we were only 20 years old guys, and we were on tour, with this absolutely fantastic group. And I was calling this group the Musica Antiqua Hungarica.
Musica Antiqua Hungarica. So,
Yeah.
how did back then? Were you already into early music, or like?
Or was it because of the hurdy-gurdy that you
Of
got
course.
into early?
What is
Yeah.
the story? Like, did you like Baroque already, or medieval or Renaissance music before, or it all started because of the hurdy-gurdy?
No, it's another story. That's why I told you it will be a long story. You have to cut it anyway. But but what happened when I was 6 years old? My parents decided that I must learn music because every intelligent family let the guy learn music. A piano or a violin or a trumpet. Probably you learn to something, violin or something. And we were living in a big flat, but under and above us there were living other families. So we could close out some instrument immediately. So no trumpet,
Yeah.
no piano,
No
no
trumpet.
violin, and that was the question. Then what do you want to learn? And then I said the guitar.
Okay.
Obviously, everybody was happy, and I've got a wonderful guitar for my birthday, and I started to learn the guitar, and it's life, it's just fate that I met a teacher whose name was Daniel Benke. He was quite a famous lute player. He was teaching the guitar, but he was always talking about the lute. So when I was 6 years old, I went to my guitar lesson and I was listening to stories about an instrument called a lute, which I didn't know what it is, but he he brought the lute in the school, and he showed, and it was wonderful. It has much more strings and double strings, and
Wow.
and I was really basically interested in music different what all my others schoolmates learned on the piano or on the violin, because they all learn from Mozart or maybe Bach or Telemann or Schütz or later Mendelssohn, but I didn't want it, and I wanted to learn more music of different manuscript and Hungarian uh, Renaissance dances, Hungarian Baroque music. So I was already involved when I was 10, 12. I was already playing on concerts with the guitar, but then I already started to play on a very simple medieval lute, a small lute.
Okay.
And I decided to be an early music player. So that's the answer for your question. That was my, but in the meantime, I had to go to the school and learn physics and mathematics and English and German and Russian. We had to learn Russian at that time. So I had to make my final examination when I was 18, and then I became free. And when I was already free, I decided to be a musician. But then it was another a turn in my life again, that my father was a well-known architect, and he had got a very interesting job, that he had to plan and realize the Institute for Musicology in Budapest. That was a fantastic, it's really the fate itself. And the guy who was the director at the Musicology Institute, he asked my father, "Do you have a son?" And my father said, "Yes, my son is Robert. And what does your son want to do?" My father said, "He's playing music, and he is, rehearsing at home, and he is going to go with friends and so on. But I don't know, I can ask him." Then go home and ask him if he wants to be a restaurer. So can you imagine that when I was, an 18 years old boy, and going after girls, and going dancing and going drinking mostly, and we had a fantastic time, and someone asked me if I want to be a restaurer. Why? So this was I was so much, simply I was, shocked. But I was thinking about, and where can I learn this? And then he said that I have to go abroad. Then I was a little bit confused, but I was thinking about, why not? It's to go abroad to a country where the culture is very high ranked, and so on and so on. So that was the time when I've got the scholarship in Nuremberg.
Okay.
And if you ever have the chance to go to Nuremberg, in the Germanisches Nationalmuseum, that's the nicest collection of musical instruments in the globe. And I was there as a student for a long time. I have all my, papers, and I have also a fantastic diploma on the wall, And I learned the musical instrument history, the organology, and I was staying from the morning at 8 until the afternoon at 7 every day in the museum. And I had a teacher called, he is still alive. He's Friedemann Helwig. He's the biggest name in the musical instrument restoration. He was very serious. I mean, you know how Germans can be. So not so very friendly, very serious, and he was all the time criticize me that I have to go to the library, and you have to go to stay more in the collection. You have to go down, and you have to count the strings and so on. It's very crazy things. But to tell you the truth, it was a very fantastic start for me, for my whole life. And the place where my father, planned this musicology institute, there was planned a fantastic workshop. And the first bigger break in my life was when I came back to Hungary after staying there for a long time in Germany. The same guy who helped me to go to Germany, he said that they didn't have the money to realize this special workshop. So that for that reason, I have to make my own workshop at home, and they can pay me like today a home office, you know. So
Okay.
I can make my instruments at home, and they pay me if I'm ready. But you know, I was living in a flat in the middle of Budapest, and that was the time when I started to dream about having a house where I can even work in the night. That's what I'm doing now, 25 years already. That's I'm working until 3 or 4. There's nobody is here, you know. It's the I'm in the here when I see there is woods, and there's also woods, mountains, and nothing.
A little
So
bit
I
like
can
you,
work
Noel.
here.
Yeah, I know.
But but at that time in the flat, you know, there
Yeah.
was not possible to work too much because the neighbors were already almost
Well, let alone play hurdy gurdy.
calling me, and I didn't play the hurdy gurdy, but I was using the hammer a lot.
Robert,
And
I had a question about when
yeah,
you were talking about when you were younger and in school and all the other children were learning what sounded like German music, so like from German composers or Western classical musicians and composers. Was there not a lot of Hungarian music being taught? Like, did you study Bela Bartok as a child, or was this something that you went back to on your own and were like, here's all the Hungarian music that I should have learned as a child? Like, where did that love come from, and what happened there?
yes, in the of course, Bela Bartok and Zoltán Kodály, they
Yeah.
were both they teached absolutely and very good and very strongly uh, and we learned a lot from Bela Bartok's music. But to tell you the truth, and that's the other path of my story. That's how the Hungarian hurdy-gurdy came to the country, because many people say that it's an ancient instrument in Hungary, but it's not, because it came only in the 19th century.
Okay.
So Bela Bartok was talking about the ancient Hungarian music. So he was talking about uh, music in the medieval times when it was the big Hungarian kingdom from 1000 to 1300. It was almost the biggest country in Europe,
Mhm.
but they didn't have any hurdy-gurdies at that time. They only played the music what the Italian and Spanish and Flemish people brought, because they were, for example, there was a king called the King Matthias. He was a fan of culture, especially his wife, the Beatrix, and they invited very famous Italian composers, like the French composers, like Josquin de Pré stayed
Yeah, of course.
20 years in Hungary, and there was also a lot of Italian lute players who came to Hungary at that time, but none of them knew about the hurdy-gurdy or Gironda or Viella, no nothing, and it just started after when the 1789 French Revolution failed. Then those guys who were already unbelievable virtuosos. Can you imagine? Sergio knows it, but as good as me. So then there were 20 or 25 people who could play on the level of Toby Miller.
Oh, imagine, eh?
It's absolutely fantastic, and they were good, and their children were good, and everything was fantastic. But
Yes,
this was a kind of a status symbol of the French kingdom of Louis the
of
XVI,
course. Tanguy,
who were
Banon,
yeah,
Chedeville, all of these guys. It's like,
and they had to go away because they were not allowed to stay in the after the revolution in the République Française. They were not so much loved as before. So where to go? This was a big question. They didn't go to the west because probably they couldn't swim, or I don't know. It was very near the sea, but they started to go to the east and to the south, and this is our Hungarian story of the hurdy-gurdy. and it connects to one picture what you posted some weeks ago, that you found also the same, which I hold in my hand in Vienna, this
Yes,
Italian
that one.
instrument. You remember that in 1727?
I remember
That
that one because the
yeah,
origin was Austrian, but
yeah,
it really looked like a
yeah,
tekero, no? So we
yeah.
were wondering, like,
Absolutely.
yeah,
It's not only looked like, but it's totally the
it
same
it
from millimeter.
it was the origin, no,
Yeah,
of the.
absolutely. And it was in, in the late 18th century. And so from France, the hurdy-gurdy started its big way to Hungary, little bit south of the Piedmont to Torino, and then it was going to Venice, and it was going up to Udine, and from Udine it go up to south of Hungary and arrived in Szentes. Szentes is a city south of Hungary. It's still a very nice city, and a first guy was János Gerec. It was written who played on the hurdy-gurdy, but nobody knows if he made this hurdy-gurdy. He only played. Maybe an Italian guy gave him or sold him. We don't know, but he could play, and they could copy this instrument there in south of Hungary, and it became the typical Hungarian tekerű, which is 1-to-1. I have a picture because I had a very old instrument which I gave to a French friend, Mille Mougenot.
Of course, yeah.
On, yeah, Mille, I gave him because he wanted to have it on his exhibition. It was the very one of the very first hurdy-gurdies, and I have the picture above each other, and it looks, if you see any details, it looks the same. But the one what you also saw in Vienna, it was made in the 18th century, and the other one was made in the 19th century. So it's
Okay.
100-year difference, and this was the way how the hurdy-gurdy came much later than some people think, and only people from that area, from Szentes, Csongrád, Szeged, Tisza-Alpár, it's like a region in France or a region in Spain. It's like it's much smaller than Galicia or something. It's a small place with about 15 cities, and they were playing the hurdy-gurdy. They called it tekerű, or they were also using and a little bit more ugly name they called the nyanyere, because it's
Ñañera.
yeah, because
The crying,
and I
no?
yeah, later on the Ukrainians they call the niñera.
Yes, in Czech Republic also they
Yeah,
call it the
yeah,
Niñera, all the
niñera.
Bohemian and Moravian Gurdis, Niñeras.
That's it. Yes, that's it. So
What does it mean?
so this is the real
Sorry,
story
Noel?
how
What
we
does
Hungarian.
niñeras,
Yeah,
is it,
sorry.
what does niñeras mean? What is it translate?
Crying.
It's just the sound.
The
It's a sound. Yeah, yeah. It would sound like niñera, niñera.
Niñera. They also say the English word, it could be also onomatopoeic, no? Like
Yeah,
hurdy gurdy.
yeah.
Okay, yeah.
They
Nobody knows. For
many
example,
theories.
nobody knows what a hurdy-gurdy means,
No,
because
of course.
a gurdy is like on at the lap, so it's maybe. But what the
Yes, and
hurdy
in
is,
Have to
Scottish also,
ruin
hurdy
it for
gurdy,
everybody
no?
that
It's when
plays it.
something is messy or so. Yeah,
yeah.
it's like nobody who can tell, no?
But they had other nice jokey names in Hungarian. They also called this instrument a zsingiri, and they called the zsingiri, 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 zsingiri. And of course, if you can listen to real Hungarian hurdy-gurdy playing, what for example the the fantastic, the younger Béla Szerényi, the younger Béla Szerényi plays. He's an excellent. He's such a talent that
Outstanding. Yeah, yeah.
fantastic. It's really, and it's a very friendly guy, and we also played together, and I remember that every minute was a nice minute with him together. So now what he plays on the hurdy-gurdy, this is the Hungarian hurdy-gurdy playing, because many people bought in the last 20, 30 years, they bought a lot of Hungarian tekerűs around the world, mostly in the United States, but also I have the Pablo is from Brazil. He's playing the hurdy-gurdy. Pablo Lerner, Pablo.
Yeah, I know him. Yeah.
He's playing on a very interesting style, and yeah, yeah, okay, and there are a lot of interesting things with the Hungarian hurdy-gurdy, but the really tekerő music is something special. And I have never been, or I know, I was not a typical folk musician. But of course, I played folk music because the first step to start in the professional life, because that's I don't like it, but the truth is that some have to make the living, because I didn't want my parents to pay me everything. I wanted to live my own. And the first thing when I went to the Hungarian radio, that I want to make recordings, that they say that you can make only folk Hungarian recordings. Wow. Okay, I said, okay, I will learn it. I went home, and in a half year, I went back and I played half an hour, and everybody was happy. And then every year we make recordings. So now in the archive of the Hungarian radio, there are about 2.5 hours of recording of my own.
2.5 hours. Wow,
It's only folk. But it's only folk, because early music we had 4
reason for that. Why did they limit you to just playing folk music? Why did they ask you to do that?
Because they didn't know the other directions of hurdy-gurdy, and they thought
they put you in a category and said
that's it. And they didn't like it, of course. And I was a young revolutionary, and I didn't like it. And
that's why you chose holy music.
And you see what happened? I formed my own group. They called the Mandel Quartet, which was really, I really have to tell you, without any exaggeration, that this was a very, very successful group in the whole world. And we were.
And did they find you, or did you find them?
I found them. That's why I called a little bit selfish, but clever. I made my group as a Mandel Quartet, because when I made before that a group with a fantasy name, after a year, someone stepped out from the group and wanted to go further with the same name.
Oh, no.
And then and juristic legally, I didn't have a reason why I don't leave that. So that was because if the group is called the Mandel Quartet, so Mandel, I am Mandel, so that was the way how we could keep it very strongly. And the group was formed officially in 1981, and we celebrated the 40th jubilee now in 2 years ago. And we sometimes play, but my colleagues are older than me, so you can you imagine that it's like an old Muppet show? Four old guys, I am 67, but they are 72, 73, and we look like, 4 old men and, struggling with each other on the stage, and it's very jokey. I mean, it's a kind of a TV show. It could be, but we had a lot of concerts all over in the world, and for example, in Spain, for example, we were playing on the opening ceremony of the Sevilla Expo. Nice. In 1992, which was one of my biggest thing in the world, because there was very many people and many minister presidents and many famous actors and actresses who knew our name. And then we got the possibility to play for the BBC regularly in London. We played many times in the BBC One and in the BBC Pebble Mill at one, and in another show called the Wide and Awake Club. And those Blue Peter, for example, that was the most important children's show in England at that time. And that was, we are talking about, very lovely shows. But if you add that in England, in about 10 million people watch the show like that. 10 million, not 10,000 or 5, 10 million.
10 million.
And when I arrived to the United States, I had the chance, which was my biggest show ever, the NBC Today Show. Probably you know NBC Today Show, what it is.
Yeah, tell us about that experience. That must have been amazing.
That was a very, very big luck, I have to tell you, luck. that one a Hungarian guy who emigrated in 1956. You know, there are many emigrated after the Hungarian Revolution, and he had a friend who had a friend, and that the third friend who knew a guy called Gin Shalit. Gin Shalit was the guy, you remember?
Hosted the show.
Yeah, with a big mustache, and he told us, "I need that hurdy-gurdy man from Hungary. Bring him here."
How
Goodness.
amazing is that?
We were-
Like, bring
and we
the
were-
Gurdy man. Bring
Yeah.
him.
Yes, and we were luckily in London. So from London to fly over, it was 4.5 hours or maybe 5, I don't know. And we had, at that time, it was in 1984. At that time, it was much easy to fly, and was not many people to flying because it was not very cheap. The only problem was that it was a big snow in New York,
Oh, yo.
and the taxi driver told us that he's not able to take us to the embassy building is still in the same in the Kennedy Center in the middle of New York, and he was not able to bring us there. We had a double bass and the hurdy-gurdy in a duo. Well, what?
A double
And-
bass in a taxi.
Did you get a
Robert.
split?
And we asked him, how can we get there? Because we are now here in the airport and we want to get there. And he said that the only way to get on the metro, the subway,
Okay.
you call metro in America, yeah?
Yeah.
Metro.
Yeah.
So can you imagine?
And it's interesting too because there's always musicians on the New York Metro that take out their instruments and play.
Can you imagine a double bass? Double bass is very big, and the metro was full. So when we, taking the metro, then the friend Gabor was my bass player, that he recognized that the double bass started to walk alone.
What?
You know, because it was so many people that the double bass was somehow disconnected from him. So now what happened? That we were shouting that we want the double bass back, please, and so on and so on. So it was a very interesting thing. And when we arrived, there is a metro station directly in the opposite side of that building, and then we wanted to take off the metro. Then we went up, and there was very little time left, and we had to be in a hurry, and it was a very big snow. And if you know New York, that there are some corners where the street itself is built like this, and the corner itself is about 40 centimeters high. So higher than normal, because when you see snow all over, then you think that it's in the same level. Then you can simply step. And then we were so in a hurry, then we stepped, and it was a half a meter lower.
Oh,
And then we both absolutely onto the knee. We were absolutely with snow and mud and anything. And we were already dressed like we go to the TV show.
Did they ask if you walked there from Hungary?
Maybe that would have been a good question, but at the end we arrived, and then we played a ragtime.
Okay.
Because a ragtime, because my friend was playing in a group called the Budapest Ragtime Band, and then he wrote a score for me from this melody, and we put it together, and it sounded really very jokey. It was the hurdy-gurdy rag.
And the instruments survived the trip, the snow, the taxi, the metro.
And then we arrived in time, and Gene Shalit was so happy, and we were also very happy, because we were talking about millions of watching a TV show. Now the national public what is the name of this television station? I don't know the long name, but
You mean the entire name of NBC, National
NBC,
Broadcasting?
the National Public
broadcast. Oh, you mean NPR? Are you talking about that, or NBC? That's
NBC,
National Broadcasting Company, I believe.
National Broadcast. Okay.
And there were three different channels at the time: CBS, NBC, and ABC. And during your era, in the 70s and early 80s, NBC was probably one of the biggest of the three. So to be on something to do with NBC was amazing.
Yeah,
really.
And we asked how many people are watching us, because there was a 2-day show in the early afternoon. So it was after dinner, after lunch. I mean. And it was 72 million. 72 million.
That's crazy.
I was deeply shocked that when I say hop, there's 72 million here that I said hop. But of course, we were very lucky, and the show went on good, and we started to get invitations endlessly. So we had more than 100 concerts in the United States and tours all over. We played from San Francisco, Los Angeles, San Diego. We were in the middle of the United States. We were there was a center for us in Ann Arbor. This is in Michigan.
Yep.
And we went to Kalamazoo, Grand Rapids, and when we went down to also in Illinois, Chicago, and we went to Indiana, Indianapolis, Urbana, all over, Bloomington, and we went to Washington, so all over in Miami. It was a fantastic time, but of course, it was very tiring, just to be in the United States and to travel every day, too many kilometers, and at that time we didn't drive. So we were always depending on someone who drove us to the next place. And the worst thing was that we had to eat too much, because everyone met us. The first question, "Oh, guys, you are hungry."
And I said, "Wait, you say this is bad? This is not bad. This is great.
I mean,
eat more."
After a tour, when I got back to Hungary, I had 10 kilograms more.
Oh,
back to Hungary, you weren't hungry anymore.
It took me a year to rid away that extra weight. But of course, so I remember it was a nice time. So it's really my last concert in the United States was in New York. It was about 15 or 14 years ago. But in the last period,
was that with the Mandel Quartet, or was that with?
No, that was alone. I played it was two different things. One was with the Mandel Quartet, and we played on the Berkeley Early Music Festival, which is in Oakland. It's near San Francisco.
Yep.
It's not the same as the Berkeley Music School. It's called the Berkeley Early Music Festival. And that was a great thing, because that was an evening, and we were the first little orchestra. But after us, Jordi Savai came and played. That was it was also one of my biggest remembrance. Of course, we never could be so famous as Jordi Savai or Tom Koopman or Frans Bruggen or those guys.
Tom Koopman.
But
I just saw Tom Koopman the other day here in The Hague. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He's around here very often. Yeah. Cool guy.
Holland, Netherlands is the main and the central country for the early music playing.
That's why I'm here right now.
A festival in Utrecht. We couldn't get in.
Yes.
But what we could do is that we played in 2017, which was recently. We played in the Amus Festival, in the Flanders Festival in Antwerpen. And but that was not early music anymore, because I changed my direction. And we are playing now. Still, we have some concerts abroad. We go to Tallinn, for example, now, not in the near future. But we are, playing early music, very early music, medieval music, Hildegard von Bingen.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
And we have we invited a guy who is playing on the modular synthesizer. So not
cool.
And the modular synthesizer looks like an old telephone central.
It's a spaceship, no?
Yeah. But the sound of the very early and the very new European music can get together, and it makes an unbelievable meeting in the air.
Yeah, I've thought about combining the mellotron with
Oh,
the Hurdy as well, because the mellotron is those tape looping systems.
I know.
Each keep and it works out great. It sounds fantastic, but it is amazing how the two different types of like very modern but like still from the 1970s, and how folk music in the 1970s became popular, how these two genres actually go together quite well. It's quite
Did you have
interesting.
a mellotron or a Chamberlain?
I had a mellotron. It broke.
Because the American invention is original the Chamberlain, and the guy stole the idea and took it to London, and
Yeah,
started to build the mellotrons in London. And I know those guys because I've written a book about electrophonic instruments, and
really.
this book will. I hope very much this book will be published in the United States as well. So you will be the first to get one.
Please and
Oh,
thank you. That's great.
nice.
And enjoy. I don't know if you can see it, but I have an old Wurlitzer that I
Now,
chopped.
that's why I wanted to ask you. That's a very
It's an old Whirly 220E that I chopped myself, chopped the bottom off, and it works.
talking about electronic instrument. That would be another interesting question. That I
Yes.
was always dreaming about making the hurdy-gurdy electric and electronic, and a few people know, but a few people are doubting this, or simply they want to feel that they are inventing things. But in the 80s, we made a fantastic things. It's not because of my brain, but I found a guy who was creating very interesting electronic circuits, and he asked me, "Why don't you make a photo array hurdy-gurdy, an optic array?"
Ray Hurdy-gurdy.
An opto array is like the photocell, you know what I'm talking about.
Sensors,
So
no?
when I move a key, then the key is simply disconnects a little light, and from that moment, to have a MIDI trig. You can trick the MIDI instrument, so you can trig an electronic world from your own hurdy-gurdy key. And we realized that, and that was the Electrotery, which was really the first. And I could have a lot of concerts in France, in Bruges. So, for example, there is an electronic festival. But we went to the United States as well on electronic festivals, and in Germany a lot, in Berlin. And this was a very good idea, just how to combine electronic in the instrument. Because at the moment, the very new things, what Sam Palmer makes, the MIDI Gurdy, and there is another English person who makes this MIDI Gurdy.
John Dingley.
John is very, very good, very good. And that was not to forget about this Markus, the
Markus
German guy.
Wesselhoff, yes, of course.
And those guys were making this ancient idea now much better and much complete and much complex at the moment. But none of them were trying to use the opto array,
Yeah,
because
that's
they
kind
are
of
using
cool.
they are using buttons in and out, in and out. And I was, Sam Palmer is a very, very, very old friend of mine. When I was in my first tour on England, the first thing was to visit him, and then the second day I visited Chris Eaton, Nigel's father,
Of course.
and that was I was 21, and Palmer is a 2-3 years older than me, but Nigel is younger. So, but we are on the same age. It's around 60 and 65 or so, and I was talking to Sam a lot about this, and he was making a very new direction of this MIDI things, because he can he made a sensitive keyboard for having some from piano to forte.
Dynamics, no? Yeah.
And dynamics, and then this is one of the most important things. What we couldn't do it exactly, but we were very tricky, because we were using a
volume pedal.
volume pedal. Yes, that's it. And with the volume pedal, I could play it wonderfully up and downs. But of course, if you can do the same as with the synthesizer, it is even much better. So I'm talking about Sam, and I hope once upon a time, if we are living, then I can realize a very special Sam and Robert
That would be very cool.
of electronic things. But you know, the bad thing is, you know, what it's hard to talk about this, that my life was long and short, because I started at 20, let me say, the professional in music, making music professionally, and now I'm 67. How much time do I have left? Not only how much time will I live, but how much time can I play? Because I saw old people like I know personally the Muskets, you know, Michael Muscat, and he was very old, and the last years of his life, you know, when an old man doesn't recognize if he says something wrong, so he's very strongly at his opinion, and then you as a younger, you are kind enough and not to discuss. But that's why I'm afraid of myself. Then I don't want to be an old crap, you know. It's just if I'm not recognizing that I'm talking, you know, stupid things. But I have a lot of ideas, and I hope very much that I can maybe next year or maybe this year, I don't know. I can visit again Sam, and we can talk about this, because that's a very interesting development for
You guys
this.
need to do it. That would be
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well,
He's such a great guy. He's so
Sam is
nice, and his
great.
workshop is so
yeah,
wonderful.
absolutely.
We spoiler, we want to have Sam also in the podcast, hopefully.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah,
yeah,
I
yeah.
hope very much,
So,
because he.
Robert, like we talked about your career as a musician and how everything started, but you know, in last season finale, we had Wolfgang Weichselbaumer in
Mhm.
here, and he told us that your work inspired him to start making gourdies. So that's yeah, that was
Love
like
that.
very cool, no? And now
Absolutely.
we have you. What inspired you to start making gourdies, or how was it? Like it was your grandfather with the sculptures, or because you've been around wood, no? Like all your life, I suppose.
Yes. So what I already explained, the whole story about how I saw the instrument first, and the
Yes.
first instrument was made by my grandfather. Uh, I all and of course, after when I became an instrument restorer, then I had also a school learning instrument making. But you know, to tell you the truth, officially I am a dulcimer maker,
A dulcimer.
hammer dulcimer maker, because that was
Nice.
the only possibility to be around, you know, string instruments, and not to make pianos. But I didn't want to make pianos. But in Hungary, that you cannot learn guitar making, you can learn violin making, and you can make dulcimer making, and you
Okay.
can make a lot of different, because there are no masters.
I see. So the
Not
first
really.
instrument you made, it was a hammer dulcimer.
It was my instrument, what I made for my examination, at a big one, what the gypsies play in a
Oh,
restaurant. So the big,
okay, that one. That's cool.
yeah. But
Yeah.
of course, I was not so much amazed of the hammer dulcimer because of the music what you can play on this, because that's very small board, small corridor what you can play in a dulcimer. Now, young dulcimer artists now start to make different ways into the modern music, into the Arabic music, because of course, like a santur, it's the same as a santur, just about 10 times bigger,
Basically, yes.
almost like a piano. It's very heavy. You know, it was 4 people needed to
To
get it.
carry it. Oh my god.
Playing Hammond organ.
You know, it's 500 kilograms, and it's too much. Or maybe now they make only 300 kilograms. I don't know, but there are in the inside of this dulcimer there are 2 iron, you know.
Yeah,
Iron rods.
frame. Yeah.
uh, Iron bars inside.
Uh-huh.
Only
Rods.
iron bars are over 100 kilograms. So because it's so many strings that are, you know, piano strings are on the instrument. Okay, but back to the hurdy-gurdy. So
Yeah.
I wanted to make medieval string instruments, and I started to make fiddles. You know, fiddles,
Yeah, of course.
and I made about 10 fiddles. But at that time, it was not. It's not so much popular. So people mostly bought it in from English makers and from French makers, but they didn't want to buy it from me, or I don't remember exactly. But to call back my children's dream about making hurdy-gurdies, I made for myself a new hurdy-gurdy for the many concerts, and that hurdy-gurdy is now by that very tall guy that's a scramble.
Oh, Rory.
Rory.
Rory, yeah.
Sorry, I'm just sometimes
Okay.
I have problems with names. But Rory, you know what happened? They came. I had a concert in Manchester. It was about 4 or 5 years ago. In Manchester City, there was a festival where I played, and after the concert, Michael Billington and the other guy Rory came to me, and we got very good friends in one day. It's very nice people, and he had my first instrument, because that's very strange how people's story meet in the air, because you can imagine that Scott Marshall was the one who bought this instrument from me. But I
Oh,
don't. But I didn't know at that time. I didn't know Scott. Just his girlfriend. His girlfriend was Cecilia Kovács. She's also a hurdy-gurdy player, and the girlfriend is a Hungarian woman. And he asked me to sell this instrument because Scott wanted it, and Scott played on a little and sold to Rory. And I didn't know about the fate
wow.
of my instrument. But then I met in Manchester not only Rory and Michael, but also my first hurdy-gurdy. That was very nice. And at that point, for myself, which is still my hurdy-gurdy, what I play on concerts, which is also a guitar-shaped thing, which is already 40 years old. But it
Wow.
sounds, but it sounds, after a while, after time, after 10 and 10 and 10 years, the sound became better and better.
Of course, yeah.
The vibrations, or I don't know, but this instrument sounds so good. But in the inside, the bearings and the axe, and I would love to change, but when you have the feeling that I don't have I'm not brave enough to open the instrument, because then
Leave it like
I
that, no? Just in
yes,
case.
I lose the fantastic sound, the
Mm.
dreamy sound. But then we had so many concerts that for a while I didn't do any instruments. It was about for 15 or maybe 20 years. And then when we had this whole hysteria about the COVID, and
Yeah.
another hysteria of the world inflation, of the problem with concerts. So we started to have less and less concerts, and my colleagues and my musicians and me myself had the feeling that it would be not enough to make our living, and the living gets always more and more expensive.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, and then I say, okay, let me say, I make some medieval instruments. And that was the point when I began to make symphonias. And I know that, and I hope that you understand me too, that I know very well that this symphonia is not the nicest instruments, but I try to make it as good as it is possible.
Of
So my
course.
symphonias, but
We
my
like it.
symphonias are, you had it in your hands in my
Yes.
symphonia.
Yeah.
So it is,
Yeah.
it,
We had it
I
we've
went
had
on
it here.
the first one I tried, it was in New Hampshire
oh, really?
last
Yeah.
year. It was pretty good. I like it. It's
I'm
basic. It's a
trying to make
basic
it as
instrument to again, no,
absolutely.
like your story, broadcasting the hurdy-gurdy on TV to a lot of
Yeah,
people. So this is a way of democratizing, in a way, no, the access
absolutely
to
agree.
It's
Agree.
hurdy-gurdy.
great for
So even though
beginners.
if
I mean,
it's a simple instrument, it sounds good, and
Yeah, but
it's comfortable. It's cool.
And you know, the problem is, which is not a problem, I am happy, but the situation is that there's that so many people like it, and who likes shows others, and then we are over the 500 in productions, and this is unbelievable that I'm not able to stop it, because because everybody wants new and new, and I never say anybody no, because I need that, and he needs that, and everybody needs that. So my dream is to make really more complex instruments. So I started, for example, to make it's for the first step. It's only for myself. Started to make a more complex hurdy-gurdy. Nothing special, just the quality, to prove that a Mandel instrument can be as good as any other instruments.
Yes, I get it. You don't want to be only in the niche of beginner hurdy-gurdy, because your story proves that you can, of course, make high-end instruments as well. No, I understand.
But now the new model, for example, for beginners, I started to make the Studium Basic, which is a very simple form, but
Yes.
not anymore this rectangle box, but it's look like, say, and more an instruments, and I have a lot of orders already, but that's already a step further. But of course, someone has to make good quality beginner instruments, because there are on the market very crappy instruments as well. Not
We
all, but
know.
there's
We
you
know
know
that
it's
there is a
you
lot
know
of
it's I
crap.
see in the Facebook that you are struggling with those, but so I don't know. What is an interesting question. I am not sure how can I finish instrument making in my life, or will I make on the last minute, or an ambulance car will take me out. I still will have the. I still will have the. I still will have the instrument in my hand. I don't know, but
Not need to say that. You will last a long time, Robert.
I hope very much. I hope, I feel myself young, and I wrote sometimes to Sergio that I am making sports, and we are here in the mountain. We bought these walking sticks, that's,
Oh, so you are doing like,
and
yeah.
and we are going up to the hill and down to the hill, and we have made it when the snow was big, and we have made it now. Yesterday, for example, I made 6.5 kilometers, which is not bad,
That's
going up and
cool.
down.
Yeah. Hiking.
Uh, and we hope very much that we can still make it. But the truth is that the life is not so easy as it was before. So we were talking about now very interesting times, dozens of years and wonderful remembrances, but now the whole world changed a lot, and you young man, probably for you is this is natural, this is normal, but for us older it's not normal, because we never met these problems, all over the gender problems, and the impossible inflation. They're
Yeah.
all problems which are absolutely good things, but for us it's new, and it's not so easy for me to understand and live like that. My son is 27, and he understands it so easily, so naturally, and that's the
That's just
changes
the
of
generation.
generation.
It's just the generations, and it's just as important for younger generations to respect older generations as it is for older generations to respect younger generations. And
Absolutely.
that's all that people have to do. It's not a big deal. So,
Yeah.
Absolutely. It was
So
great, Robert. I could listen to you for 6 more hours. Hopefully, we can do it when we meet in real life, play some Barrock duos, and talk with beer. But yeah. It was,
talk with beer is
yeah,
good.
talk
when
with
I
beer
finish,
always.
when, let me say, when I finish my special mandolin, what I make for myself, and
Yes.
I will take it with myself, and we'll meet somewhere,
Let's do
and
it. Let's
we'll
play
play
some
together.
concerts. Yes.
I would like to, because I see that your ensemble is definitely similar to what we began to make 20, 30, 40 years ago. So what you can do is the same. Make a good career and make people happy.
That's what we
That's
try. That's what we will
Absolutely.
try, of course.
I
So,
see that
Noel,
you
do you
I see
have
that you can do.
absolutely? Do you have any other questions for Robert that you are curious about?
Oh, I don't know. I was just thinking, just to wrap it up, like where do you see, because you keep talking about like, the future, and I want you to be more positive. So I'm thinking like where do you see yourself 10 years from now? Like what do you
Oh,
see yourself doing 10 years from now? I'd love to know the answer to that.
so one answer is that if we can get the credit from the bank, then I will I will build a new workshop, which is a bigger and more modern workshop, which is
Oh,
which is
fancy.
capable, which will be capable not only for instruments, but my son is a graphic artist,
Oh, cool.
and he's doing 3D things, and
Oh,
he's
super.
very much involved in the new movement of AI,
Oh, yes.
the
Yep. Hmm.
intelligence thing, and so we need a workshop which is bigger, full of machines and so on and so on. But for that we need to tell you the truth, a lot of money, and then the situation of the credit is not so easy at the moment. So
Hmm.
you can't get so much credit. So we need a we need maybe 500,000. So this is, I mean, in
Oh,
euros, and this is a big amount. But we are building now a house besides my house
hmm.
to my son. We still have because you know that in 10 years ago I moved to Vienna, and I'm coming and going, coming and going.
Hmm.
So I was and I'm already pensioneerd. What is that in English? I'm Rentner in German. What is
Like,
that in English?
Oh, like
An
back
old
and forth. Like you live half time here and half time there.
no
Is
no
that?
no no.
no, like
The pen
retired, no?
retired. That's sorry.
Oh,
Thank you very much. So I am retired
you're
officially.
retired?
Oh,
Yeah. Uh,
retired
I mean,
officially.
and for this reason, because when I was a full-time worker in Austria, in Vienna, I had to be there in a year, 183 days, which I had to prove.
Hmm.
Because
Oh,
that's why I was getting my salary, and I was working, organizing concerts and festivals, and working for musical editions, sheet music and so on. So it was a very nice thing. And I was coming and going. Now I'm staying more in Hungary,
Hmm.
but I'm very far away from Budapest, far away from Vienna, far away from Brno or Bratislava. So we are in the middle, in the woods. It's really a little village. Here we live 800 people, but mostly younger people who made new houses here. So this is a calm area. So in 10 years, that would be a nice thing, that to have this new workshop, and maybe if I have it, like the Dugway or some people
Hmm.
make in the workshop little festivals, maybe I will also do some festival. I will ask you to help me to organize.
Let's do it,
okay.
Robert. Come on.
Yeah,
Great.
because that would be a nice thing. I think that happening in Ramsgate is also a very nice idea and a good thing, just to get people together. And it is not so far. I mean, if somebody is already in Vienna or in Brno or something,
Hmm.
let's add 2.5 hours. I'm driving from here to Vienna, to my Vienna flat. I'm driving 2 hours and 22 minutes. That's the
Oh,
average,
fine. That's
which is not bad, because when you are listening in the car, it's a good stereo in the car.
yeah, you're
When
good.
you listen, you can have not do much more than one CD, because the CD is over an hour, and then in the middle you stay, and you make some break, and so you can. Last time I started to listen to early Pink Floyd things, which was
Oh.
my
Oh, metal and ambient.
favorite in my life. Pink Floyd is all over.
Mhm.
And also Jethro Tull. I've even worked with them in England,
Oh, holy
in
smokes.
Oxford. Yes.
Wow. I mean,
So
I think it would be great if you had like some stuff going on at a new workshop, because I mean the important thing is education, and showing everybody what you can do, and what the hurdy-gurdy is about. If you build it,
Absolutely.
they'll come.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes, yes, yes. It's all about, showing the instrument, making the people recognize it's a real instrument. It can sound amazing. It is just like that. So we have to
Yeah,
keep.
but it's a real instrument. That's the important
That's
thing. That
that's what I am doing
it's
here
not a
now. I am
prop.
in Den Haag in the Netherlands. So now what I am doing is showing the Gurdy to all of the early music department. I force them to play it. Like, look, take this, play it. No, to all the
Yeah.
harpsichord players, to all of the baroque violinists, because this is the only way to make the people realize that this instrument is amazing, and this is what we have to do, like keep going with the workshops, with the concerts, with the instrument making, and just broadcast the instrument everywhere, and make it more and more important, no, every day. That's the thing.
And you are a great follower also in Australia, because when I was in 1888 first in Australia,
Oh
the
yeah.
hurdy-gurdy was absolutely unknown. So I was the first person who in the Sydney University, I made a kind of a scientific hour to talk about the hurdy-gurdy, and people came to me to see what happens. But I didn't go back, because to go to Australia, it's with more instruments, and with it's very very expensive already.
It is
At that
very
time, I
expensive
I
still
flew with
today.
British Airways, and that was uh, at that time it was already about in 2,000 euros or something like that. Or that was not
Yes.
euros at that time, but British pounds.
Mm.
I don't know how much is now, but I see that you make a very very fantastic job in Australia, and I'm
Merci.
happy that someone can do it, because the only guy who is also, that he's also a Hungarian guy, the Henry Vash.
He's Hungarian.
Oh, I
Hungarian,
didn't know
Oh
that.
my
absolutely.
god.
He was born in Australia. He was born in Tasmania, but his parents were emigrating from
Okay.
Hungary
Okay.
to Australia. So he's the only one who makes hurdy-gurdies in Australia,
Yes.
and that's why it's time to spread. We'll see,
Let's
but
see. I go there in October. I will tell you once we come back. But it's so far it's been a success. We have already, I think, 14 people in the workshop. So yeah, I
they have a
think
lot.
it's
They have also about. When I remember well, I sold at least 12 or 13 symphonias in
that's
Australia,
great.
and I also sell three mandolins. So
Oh,
they
okay.
have a lot of Mandel instruments already there, because they really can't get any good instruments, because Henry is a good maker, but he is making very interesting little. I don't know the name it in English. In who a little thing with wheels. Drawn with horses. What would it be? I don't know the English word.
With
Noel would know it.
I don't know what we are talking
You
about right
know,
now.
A drone with horses?
drawn with horses, and it's like a little a cabin or something like with two big wheels. I don't know what it is. The name. Let me see.
Hmm.
Mm,
It's, some words are miss.
Sounds like it needs to be like a pub question.
Yeah, but
Pub question. The drone with two horses.
it's like a carriage.
oh,
Oh,
what?
really?
It's
He's
it's an
what?
old-fashioned carriage, and I don't know the name of it. And he's doing that, and that's a fantastic thing, because he is the only one in the world
That's
who is making
what?
all
That's
early
amazing.
carriage.
It reminds me
That's
of
really
the maker of my baroque Gurdy, Jean-Claude Bass. He was also making the wheels of carriages like back then.
Oh,
yeah. But if you go to Australia, let's meet those people. Like I have a very good friend called Lindsay Pollack, who is playing on very silly instruments. He's making from instruments from flutes from carrots
Oh,
and cabbages, and he uses from he makes a very nice mellow instruments from a watermelon.
Yeah.
And
Amazing.
We do that with little children. I run a class here with small children where we make percussion instruments out of, well, essentially garbage.
vegetables.
Yeah, exactly. We just collect anything that we can and say, what can we make out of this that will make a sound? And they love that because then they're creating their own instrument,
Amazing.
similar to what you did as a child, which is kind of cool.
Fantastic, guys. So it was a pleasure, Robert, for real, having you again. I would listen to you talking like for 5, 6 hours straight. No, like no question. And maybe we can have Robert one more time, because
Yeah.
I think
I'm ready.
it was very, 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 very good.
Yep.
So
Great.
well, that's it. This is
Alright,
the
thank you.
end of this first chapter of the new season of the Hurdy Gurdy Cafe podcast. Thank you, Robert, for coming. Thank you, Noel, for co-hosting
I was happy
the
with you.
show.
I was happy with you.
What, sorry?
I was very happy with you.
And we're happy with you.
It was amazing.
Thank you very much.
You can come to New Hampshire anytime and be in my
Oh, yeah.
yard.
Absolutely.
I can. I will. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We will see you in the next episode. Keep on cranking.
You keep on cranking.
Bye.